But 5 women of need within the church. We provide them 24 chickens. We have them, we've trained them on how to build the chicken coop. They go out and they build the chicken coop. We provide them the fencing for it. And then from that, they give back. They sell some of the produce. They give some of that back to CSEM, and that continues the project in that community. That's been blessed so much financially that we're actually able to go into phase 2 of that we didn't see coming. I didn't know I was going to Mexico. Even though I'm from West Virginia, I never raised chickens before until Mexico. And so it's been a learning curve, for sure. It's one of those things, attempting something so big, I'm guaranteed to fail unless God intervenes. So I got my chicken book for dummies, and I'm trying to learn from that. So we do have the chicken project, and then we do an education program with our youth and with our church. Our church is there. Another thing we do is, this is an invitation to your church. We invite teams down from the U.S. to come down and to do basically about anything. It's really a catered mission trip to what you have a talent and ability to do. We invite you to bring that because our ministry is so much about relationship. So you can come down, and we've had people come down who have just taught a workshop, music workshop on how to lead worship or ways to go into worship. We've had personal devotions, personal Bible studies, women's ministries that have come down and just solely worked with the women. Vacation Bible schools, come down and do a week-long, 4 or 5 day long vacation Bible school with our kids. Your presence is what will speak. It's not your knowledge, it's not your ability, none of that will speak. What will speak is when you show up. Now you've just spoken the loudest, you'll be able to speak all week. Because you can have all the talent in the world and all the ability in the world, but there are people like, we have one character who comes down, I call him character, he's a good friend of mine, but he's just lively personality is the best way to explain him. And his name's Ron Toothman. And people remember Ron. And they remember he's the guy laying down in the wheelbarrow. And they remember that he's the guy who likes to have a good time and goof off with them and stuff. And they'll ask about Ron. But they also, you'll be gone for 5 or 6 years and you'll come back and they're going to ask you about your wife or your husband. They're going to ask you about your kids because they're not going to forget that experience because, again, back to the value of relationship. Relationship is the most important thing in any mission team that comes. If we don't build a single thing while you're there or do a single thing but just show up, we've done enough. And so from the U.S. mentality, that's hard sometimes, right? The U.S. mentality is we got to go, we got to get a project done, and we want to see it completed. And you know what they're going to say is, I don't need that. You know, because it's more of a despacio. It's just a laid-back culture, completely different from our go-go-go culture in the U.S. But our targeted groups that we work with are pastors, youth, women, and married couples. Pastors include the men, because people ask where are the men there. Mainly our pastors are male. We do have a couple women pastors within CSEM that are part of our CSEM churches. And then we work with youth, and I'll stop on youth for just a moment. Back to Pastor Jose. When we left Sola Sola this last May, because we're on home assignment for a year, going out and speaking to churches just like this and telling you about our experiences and the Mexican culture. When we left Pastor Jose in May, we had a meeting with him again, and we said, okay, Pastor Jose, and the same elder board, when we come back, what do you want from us? And this is where they asked for us to help develop their leadership program amongst their youth leaders. Not just in their church, but also in their missional planted churches they have out in the mountains of Puebla, Mexico. And so now you see what happened is, once relationship got built, once trust got built, once why are you showing up got established, now from that relationship and from that trust, now opening up can happen and you can be trusted to be invited into people's lives. Too many times we're going to come running in with the Bible, hitting people over the head, instead of coming in and just saying, here's my motive. My motive is to show you the love of Christ. And that's my motive. And so when you see that in my life, when you see that in a person's life, and you see that that life is different, and you see a contentment in a person's life, one of my favorite definitions of contentment is by evangelist David Rim. And he says, contentment's not getting what you want, but it's wanting what you got. And that's so much of what we lack in the U.S., right? That's why we're so far in debt. That's why we're so far, that's why everybody, most married couples, the people that come together married now, already have $50,000 in debt on both ends and come together $100,000 in debt. You know, is because we want stuff, and we want it now. We're not content. We want the new iPhone. We've got the iPhone 9, or what, the 7, but oh, wait, there's an 8. Oh, they put an X on it, and that X is cool looking, and it's better. No, it's not. It's the same thing, basically, okay? But anyway, that's another thing. But contentment is one of a very important thing to learn within our own culture that we need a lot of work on there. But what Pastor Jose asked us then was, since you have proven yourself, since you've shown up, since you've done this, here's the work we have for you when you come back. And so Deb has the opportunity to work a lot with the women, the indigenous women of Mexico. She does women's workshops with health workshops that include not only spiritual but also physical health. The indigenous Mexican is in bad physical health due to Coca-Cola. Not just Coca. When I say Coca-Cola, I mean pop in general, and sweets and those types of things, because as of 20 years ago, these things didn't exist in the indigenous community. Well, Coca-Cola or whoever found out, well, they'll buy it, and so they go there, and then now what you don't have is you don't have the dental care that you have in the city, and you don't have the health care that you have. And so what happens is everything's sugar-based, and so all of a sudden the teeth problem, and it just creates a whole another problem there. And so Deb really is a promoter of the importance of drinking water, and the importance because yes, you can't drink the water. Whoever said that earlier, yeah, you can't drink the water anywhere in Mexico pretty much, but you can drink the purified water that you buy in the 5-gallon jugs. So that's okay. When Deb and I go back, I forgot to mention we have 2 kids in college, didn't I? Yeah, Boyd and Bailey are their names. Oh, Deb would not have let me go on. Wow, you guys cannot tell anything, but I did bring up our kids because I love them. And they'll be home in like 12 days. So anyway, we have 2 kids, 2 adult kids. I don't know when that happened. We're empty nesters. We have a son who is a sophomore, yeah, in college, at Biola University in Southern California. That's the Bible Institute of Los Angeles. And praise God, Bailey, our daughter, who's 18, she's a freshman. They go to the same college. And so they both have sensed a call to missions in medical form, because Deb and I are not of anywhere medical people. But Boyden wants to be a missionary doctor, and Bailey wants to be a missionary nurse. And so that's what they're studying now. So they're coming up on finals this next week, and so if you could remember them in your prayers, we'd greatly appreciate that. But they have been such an integral part of our ministry. We've lost 50% of our ministry team when they're not going back with us, because they were so integral in our ministry. So when we go back, we'll go back in June, and we'll sign up for another 5 years. We'll be there 4 years, and then back on home assignment for a year. We're developing a discipleship program to teach out into our communities with leaders, continue to develop our chicken project, women's ministry, and the youth training events that we want to, Pastor Jose asked us about, and continue to attend and show up to our communities and show up to our churches to build relationships with them. So that's a little bit about our ministry. We want to invite you guys to be part of that ministry by becoming part of our MPN, which is our Missionary Partnership Network. And what that Missionary Partnership Network looks like is it's a church or individual that has said we want to partner with the Myers and by praying for them. And so what you would do, what we would ask is you would just cut this off, stick that somewhere to remember to pray for us. A place that you can remember to pray for our family. And also on here you can fill out this prayer card that says, I will pray for you, and send that in, or you can give it to me tonight. It just basically says you're willing to pray for us. Give us your email address, and about every 6 weeks we send out an update, and you can receive that. You guys aren't on that now, are you? I don't think so. No, okay. Because we just sent out an update like last week. So you'll get on that, and there's no obligation or anything like that. All it is just this is an update of what we're doing to remember to pray for us. We are faith-based as far as financially. How we stay in Mexico is because of individuals and churches. So we would ask you to consider to be part of that as well. Individually, you can be part of that. It tells you on the card how you can support us monthly. Also, you can do it annually, or you can do it through your church, however you would choose to do that. But we just ask you to prayerfully consider that. You also can go through the website there, and I did not update that, so it's not right. But internationalministries.org is where you would go to and hit the Give button and find Global Servants Keith and Debbie Myers. And then you can give through International Ministries and do it monthly out of your, just comes automatically out of your account monthly. So that's another opportunity that you have for that there. So we've got about 10 minutes, but I want to leave that open to questions. Any questions?
You are in Puebla?
Yes. Yeah, we live in the city of Puebla, which is a little bit, remember I'm from Worthington, 200 people. Puebla's a little bit bigger. It's about 3 million people.
Oh,
so it's
that's where her son
That's
and
where
daughter
my son is going. They are moving.
Really?
This week, they are going to Puebla. Their children, well, the little one can't go to kindergarten yet.
Yeah.
But the older one is going to go to school at Puebla Private School. So I'm wondering if
Puebla private school or Puebla Christian school?
it's a private school. I don't know if it's a Christian school.
Are they with a mission agency or
No.
your family?
No.
No? Okay.
I know it's bilingual.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's a huge city. So our kids went to Puebla Christian School, which is a really small school, K through 12, and it's only got about 60 students at it, so it's a very small school.
that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. I'll find out if they're going there.
Okay.
I'm just
Cool.
not sure exactly.
Puebla is an amazing city. Just really a neat city, a colonial city. We don't live in the colonial part, we live on the outskirts of it. But really neat city.
Well, they're excited.
Yeah. Where are they moving from?
From Michigan.
From Michigan to Puebla. Wow.
It's going to be a change in scenery.
Yeah, a little bit. We're surrounded by volcanoes, one active one. That,
Yes, now
yeah,
they can see.
puts off.
They can see it from.
Yeah, you can see it from all of Puebla.
Oh,
It's 18,000 feet, so it's up there. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we see it right out of our office window. We can see both Popo and Ixtepec.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So,
Did you say that the Mayas, there were people that were related to the Mayas?
Yeah, the Mayans actually, they spoke Nahuatl. And so that's the indigenous, that is the language of Mexico. And so like my colleague, Noé, he speaks Nahuatl.
Yes, but the people said they're from the Mayas. From the
Mayans and Incas, yes.
That's just fascinating.
Yeah, that's wild. There are so many different people groups. There are unknown people groups that exist in Mexico. In Teotihuacan, outside of Mexico City, there are these huge pyramids. There's a sun pyramid and the moon pyramid. They're these massive, and there have been like different people groups that have lived there, but they have there's no idea where these people groups ever went to, why they left, or
That's
anything.
what I was thinking about the Mayas.
Yeah.
They've been going for a long time.
Yeah, those pyramids are huge there. We live by Cholula. Some of you might know Cholula by Cholula hot sauce. You ever heard of Cholula hot sauce? Yeah, that's made in Cholula, Mexico. And actually the world's largest pyramid is in Cholula, Mexico, but you can't see it. It's underground. You just see a mound that's there. You can go in parts of it. We were given an invitation by a tour guide there. She gave us her number and stuff. She was an archaeological, whatever those people are called, archaeologist? Yeah. She's an archaeologist, and she invited us to say she'd give us a tour of the whole pyramid. That there's parts you have to crawl through and stuff, and we messed up and we didn't call her.
It's supposed to be older than the other pyramids.
Yeah, and this one actually has 3 pyramids. There are 3 different people groups that have been in Cholula. And they built 3 different pyramids on top of it. So now there's a Catholic church that sits on top of all of it. So, unless they can build on the Catholic Church, I don't know. They just keep covering up and building.
Well, my
But they
son
built the
has-
city of Cholula
Yeah.
without knowing that the pyramid was actually based out like it was.
Yeah, my son has seen that Catholic church up there and taken a picture of it, and it's unbelievable how they built a
Yeah.
church on top of that pyramid.
Cholula is like the church capital of probably the world. I don't know. There's 365 Catholic churches in Cholula. And I think the reason they do that is they like to celebrate their saints, and they like fireworks. And so every day that there's a saint day, they get to light off fireworks. So in Cholula, every day there's a saint day. A bunch of fireworks. It's pretty loud, but they're loud fireworks too.
Do they speak English as well as Spanish?
Not so much. It is taught, English is taught to the city, folks that live in the city. They'll learn some English, and it's becoming more and more necessary. The same as Spanish is becoming necessary for us. English is becoming necessary for them. One thing I failed to mention about the indigenous culture is most of the indigenous culture can only go up to school to about 5th grade because that's all the further the government has in their communities. If they want to go to school up 6th grade or above, they have to come to communities like Puebla or somewhere like that that are larger cities. And what that ends up happening because of that is then they come in from their indigenous community and they speak Popoloca, and they come in there, but then the teacher says you can't speak Popoloca. And if they get caught speaking their indigenous language, they get punished for it. And our colleague, Noe, who was Naguat, would ride a bike 2 hours every day. Now imagine this, guys. It's time for school. Any of you who's above 5th grade here? All right, so now imagine this. He's talking to these guys. All right. Careful how I say that. I almost got myself in trouble. All right, so anyway, imagine you got to get up. It's time for school tomorrow. All right, and it's raining. All right, and it's a little cold out, and it's raining, but you got to you don't get the school bus. You got to get on your bicycle, and you got to ride 2 hours. And then after that, you have to catch public transportation that takes you another hour to get to your school. So what time does school start? 9, 7? All right, so let's say it starts at 8. We'll count the middle, okay? Say it starts at 8. So what time do you have to leave for school then? 3 hours out. So you're going to have to leave at 5 in the morning, probably 4:30 every morning. Now, nobody's telling you you have to do that. Mom and Dad are okay if you don't do that. Would you continue to get up every morning and go to school? 4:30 in the morning if you had your bike? Yeah. That's a hard question to answer, right? Probably not, right? Probably not if Mom and Dad aren't going to make anything. That's the typical, and that's what Noe did, is Noe got up every day. He was the first child in his family to finish high school. He finished high school and then he went on, now he has his master's degree. He's one of the exceptions to education in the indigenous community of Mexico. And so what happens is by 4th grade, 5th grade, so then, I forgot to tell you, when you bike your 2 hours, 3 hours, or 2 hours, and then get on the public transportation, you're not allowed to speak English when you go to the school that you're going to. You have to speak Spanish. Yeah.
Are the schools crowded? I mean, are there very many kids at school?
Well, it depends, yeah. The city school, everything's uniform. They have certain uniform they have to wear. They have certain, very, very strict, very military-like in their school. Even in the indigenous community, they wear uniforms and of such.
And I mean, does it cost the students anything to attend a higher education?
Higher education past what?
Past 5th grade?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it's just a long job.
Yeah, they would have to, the uniforms they would have to pay for, and their food they would have to pay for, and then because these folks, like where Noe lived, is he lived near Tehuacan, which was pretty much all flat for him to get there from the community he lived in. But these kids that I'm talking about, we work with, live in the mountains of Mexico, and so they would have to go and leave their family and live with someone else in order for this to happen. And so it's the sacrifice. And remember the importance of family and what a sacrifice it is. It also gives you it gives you a different perspective of immigration as well. When you're sitting across the table in someone's brick home with hardly anything, and the man's not there because he snuck across to get in the United States so he could come and work here for 3 or 4 years so he could send money back to his family. And he's made this huge sacrifice in order to do that. It's not about coming and taking advantage of a system. It's about the fact that if I lived in West Virginia and could go to Pennsylvania and I only made $2,600 a year, but I could go to Pennsylvania and make $40,000 a year or $30,000 a year doing the same work, what would I do? And so, there's a huge sacrifice to look at. And it really widens your idea of immigration. It widens your idea of even folks being here without papers. It just kind of makes you think a little bit different. All I know about our immigration is it's broken. The system needs fixed. I don't have the answers to that. I can just tell you it's a broken system that needs fixed because it's not working I don't think a wall is an answer in my opinion, just simply because when you have folks that they're called coyotes, you hire a coyote to get you across the border, and what that coyote, and this is happening every day, all the time, and so you pay that coyote, you get together with your family, you save up $8,000, $10,000, you give it to that coyote, he goes up to the border agent says, what you got in the back? He says, oh, you don't need to worry about it, here's $10,000, gives it to the border agent, and he passes on through. So a wall's not going to fix that, and that's happening today as we speak, and so it's a broken system that we need to fix, and a wall doesn't fix it. It hurts relationship. A wall, your neighbor puts up a wall, it hurts relationship, even if you don't get along with your neighbor. It puts up a problem to fix that relationship, and so that's the challenge that. Our world's been, we went from Worthington, West Virginia, remember I told you about my little circle here, and all of a sudden that got blown up. Your worldview changes, and just the way you see things changes when you live outside of your own culture. It definitely changes perspective, which I think is good, or I know is good. But then we get the opportunity to come back in and share our experiences in Mexico with folks that may never get that opportunity to do that. Kind of open up your eyes. Now you can say you do know someone from Mexico. You do know someone that's lived there for 6 months. And so now all of you get to answer yes to those questions.
Are you in areas that are not predominantly Catholic?
No, Mexico is predominantly Catholic.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean in the areas that you are in.
Every community in Mexico is predominant Catholic. You can't get away from it. And the evangelical church in Mexico, the Christian church, is a toddler. Basically, about the last 15, 20 years has been able to start to grow in Mexico. Where even our CSEM churches 20 years ago, CSEM's been around 30 years. And 20 years ago, there was great persecution against the churches of CSEM. Because they were trying. We still have some CSEM communities that we have to be aware that when we're there, we're not welcomed by the locals because we are evangelicals. So there are some of those communities that still exist, but we don't really go out into the communities because we work mainly with the leaders of the church. So our evangelism and stuff isn't happening out in our communities. Sometimes we'll go with our pastors and the leaders out into the communities. But other than just going and walking around and stuff like that, from a theological standpoint, we don't do much in the communities. Ours is mainly with the empowering the leaders, because it wouldn't be accepted. It just, outside of the church, we're not going to be accepted as evangelicals.
The Catholic Church doesn't welcome you there?
Oh, we've not had them not welcome us. Some of the changes that have happened over the years, because Catholicism here is a lot different than Catholicism in Mexico. I was raised in a Catholic school from kindergarten until 8th grade. I went to a private Catholic school. My parents weren't Catholic, but that was the school that they put me in. So I know a lot about the Catholicism here. I do also know that within Catholicism, even within the U.S., at least when I was growing up there, I was never introduced to Jesus Christ as my personal Savior. That relationship came outside of the Catholic Church. And so, because I wasn't Catholic, so I didn't take the Catholicism classes, the catechism classes, I know they're called. I didn't take those classes, and so I was never taught the importance of relating. I knew who Jesus was. I knew he was born on Christmas, and that he was, you know, the mother, or the son of Mary and Joseph, and you know that I knew. But outside of that, I didn't know the importance of a relationship. In Mexico, the Catholic Church is more driven by money, and it's changing, but also with that change, it also is changing in the fact that as long as, you know, if evangelicals, or when I say evangelicals, I'm talking Christians, like your Baptists, Methodists, those type of things, when they're welcome. They're also now, though, what that opens up is it welcomes also Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and different other religions. It Islam invites that in as well. So that's something we have to be aware of. There are cults within the name and claim it type ministry is alive and active in Mexico very much, especially within the city. And the indigenous folks, they were resentful towards that, rightfully so, just because it's, again, more of that particular teaching is more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word that I'm looking for. It might come to me later. But just that particular teaching is privileged. It's a privileged teaching. If you're from